Good morning. Welcome to another episode of Courtside with Kinnebrew. Happy Monday. Beautiful, sunshiny Monday already. Um, it's light out. When I started doing these in the dead of winter, it wasn't light at this time already. Anyway, first, congrats to all of the graduates. Lots of graduation parties over the last couple weeks. And I unfortunately have only made it to one. I do apologize. Thank you to everyone that sends out like invitations and sent us invitations on Facebook. It's crazy how busy a person is, and you don't really. I don't know if you ever realize how busy you are until I don't know. You try to want to go to some grad parties, and you just don't make any of them that you want to go to. So I made it to one, two if you include my own daughters. And big high five to all of you that plan these. And um, my wife, bless her heart, last several of weeks, the planning and the ordering and we had a very successful grad party. Um, all thanks to her and her hard work. So to all of you that put, not that I didn't help, but I definitely didn't do any of the ordering and organizing. And I mean, I stood there and hung stuff up where I was told to hang stuff up. Um, but all the ordering of stuff and organizing and just making things pretty perfect was pretty awesome. So we had a fun day on Saturday. One more week for us is graduation. Again, congrats to everyone that is graduating, has made it to this point. Um, it's pretty cool to see like a lot of the pictures that we had up of like kind of to like 10 years ago. I'm looking at old Y League pictures of me coaching and the kids that I coached like 10 years ago that are now graduating. It's really cool to see um, where players are. Like 10 years ago, I wasn't involved in training like I am now. I was coaching, like my big coaching gigs were um, Y League basketball teams, which was so much fun. And I imagine, assuming my grandkids play basketball, like I might be back in the Y League scene here in a few years. I'm probably going to take a couple years off of coaching. Um, Maybe I've been coaching for over 20 years, which is kind of crazy to think about. At some level, from a high school varsity level, which is where I started, um, all the way down to I don't know when the Y League starts, but I went from a varsity boys basketball coach to I think like a third grade girls Y League coach. That was my transition when I moved to Bismarck. Um, anyway, I've been coaching a very long time, and I think this will be my last summer coaching. I think for a little bit, probably until, like I said, if I end up coaching my grandkids in Y League ball, like that might be my next coaching job. Anyway, so again, congrats to all the graduates. Um, this morning, I wanted to talk about not my coaching career um, and where that's going, but I got a question here just this past week asking about how do you help a player be more aggressive and take more shots. And in speaking to Y League basketball, we'll start with the aggressive side. I think one of the hardest things is to get kids to be aggressive, and this definitely starts with I think kids at a younger age. Um, and it's almost, and this is no fault to Y League or any specific program, because I see it all the way up through the AAU level as well. But from an aggressive standpoint, when we're starting with young kids, I think right away we try to take some of that aggressiveness away from kids, um, to a point of where, like, when kids start playing basketball, the first things they're told is they're not allowed to steal the ball, which is just mind blowing to me. That, and I understand that, like, the purpose of it, you want to give kids a chance, especially those that are learning to play. Um, but you're also handcuffing kids that want to be very aggressive and get after it, and you're basically telling them that they can't be aggressive, that they can't play defense. Um, so from the start, I think from a young age, we're definitely taking kids backwards, and then when they get a certain age, you're trying to push them forward. So that can definitely be an issue, um, for kids. And again, no fault to any program. I feel like there's a problem there with telling kids they're not allowed to be aggressive, and then when they hit a certain age, you're telling them to be aggressive, and just expecting kids to flip that switch. I think can definitely be hard for a kid, a younger kid, to just understand, like, okay, now I can steal the ball, now I can't steal the ball. Um, you really see it, and I don't remember, like, when the age, is it sixth grade where you're not allowed to press, or when you're allowed to start pressing. I don't even know, but there, I feel like I've been out of it for a couple of years. But like, even going to like travel tournaments, when kids get a rebound, you're not allowed to press. So as soon as the other team has the ball, like, kids just run to the other end of the floor. It becomes just a habit of, like, I can't touch the ball. And then they hit a certain age, and you're expecting them to fight for loose balls and dive on the floor, and it's like, well, the other team had a finger on it, so I can't go touch it. We're we're really handcuffing kids and expecting way too much of them to be able to turn it on and turn it off. And so trying to teach kids to be aggressive and to fight for the ball and go for steals, and it's hard to teach them to do that when they're told they're not allowed to do that to a certain age. Um, so I definitely feel like something needs to change there. And this goes all the way up through just this last weekend. We're in Minnesota, AAU tournament, 14U. So we're talking eighth graders that are about to be freshmen in high school. Um, and it seems like tournaments have this rule of you're not allowed to press once you're up 20. Um, which, again, I understand the concept of pressing. My team doesn't press for the most part. I can't think of many times where we've actually set up a press. I do expect my players to play full court defense, like pick your guy up full court, make him work. We're not pressing, we're not trapping, we're just playing defense. And again, we're talking AAU, a high level, supposed to be a high level of basketball. And we had a 20-point lead. And again, we weren't pressing, and the other coach starts complaining about us pressing. Um, and it wasn't something that I had even thought about. Like, it wasn't a big deal to tell my guys to pick up at half court, and I probably would have anyway. But it just, the mindset of, like, oh, you can't play defense full court. Like, well, what's the difference if I pick you up full court or if I pick you up at half court? Again, we're not pressing, we're not trapping, we're just playing defense. And to tell a kid to not be aggressive, just drives me nuts. Um, and it starts from a young age all the way up through. And I don't know. I understand, like, why a program or a tournament would want some kind of rule in place, so you get away from teams being up 20 and full court press and trapping, and the other team just can't get it past half court. Um, that part I get. I don't know where I'm going with this, but it just kind of bothered me because I expect my kids one, to learn how to play defense, pick up full court and just learn how to move your feet. And to tell kids that they're not allowed to do that, that kind of bothers me, I guess, is where I'm going with that. Um, so how do you help kids be more aggressive? I don't really know. I've kind of just listed a lot of problems with around helping kids be aggressive again because they're told from a young age that they're not allowed to be. So I do think that needs to change. Um, allowing kids to allowing kids to be aggressive. That's how you learn how to be aggressive from a young age. Is allow them to do it. Quit telling kids they're not allowed to steal the ball. Quit telling kids they're not allowed to try to tie the ball up for a jump ball or whatever on rebounds. Um, yeah, I don't have the answer specifically to that question, but I mean, those are some of the concerns I guess I see that just kind of drive me crazy. What was the other part of that question? Oh, taking more shots. Um, well, other than just telling kids to shoot the ball more, um, that's probably, I think, a big part of kids shooting the ball more, being more aggressive. So on the aggressive side, I've been talking more defensively, but even on the offensive side, being more aggressive in shooting the ball, attacking the basket. I think that starts with training and the amount of work kids are putting in. Um, if you've got a player in regards to shooting, if you're in the gym and you're getting up a lot of shots and you get confident in your shot and you know your shot looks good, you're more apt to shoot the ball more in games, I think. Um, but if you don't have the confidence in your shot, if you feel like your shot doesn't look good, um, you're probably going to be a little hesitant to shoot the ball. So I feel like the more work kids put in working on their shot, becoming more skilled. The more skilled you are, the better shooter you become, the more work that you put into it. I think that definitely grows your confidence to um, at least attempt to do those things in games. Having, I think having the right coach helps in that situation. I'm yelling at my kids often that they have to shoot the ball. Like I feel like everyone on my team is pretty good shooters, and so something I've always told my kids, like shoot the ball when you're open, especially my team. Like we're almost never within AAU the taller team on the floor, and so our bigs get doubled, get tripled anytime the ball hits the paint. And I think we do a really good job kicking the ball out. And there's some games like on a kick out where you don't shoot the ball. Like we'll shot fake and we dribble back into traffic, which drives me crazy. Like shoot the ball when you're open. And I think for players, I'm going to stick to just my team because every coach's philosophy is different. But with my players, I tell them they have to shoot the ball when they're open. If and when they start taking bad shots, they're going to hear about it. And we'll talk about it. And that's something that I let them know. But you have to have the confidence to shoot the ball. And I think that's something as players, the more work that they put into it, the more comfortable they get shooting it, the more likely they are to shoot the ball in games. If they're not confident in their shot, they haven't been in the gym shooting for weeks. Then you jump into games and you just expect them to have the confidence to shoot the ball. It doesn't quite work that way. Um, being aggressive, getting downhill, attacking the basket. I do think players need to play more. This kind of dives into the conversation of like playing and training. Like you've got to have a good balance of both. And so on the training side, you start to grow your skill set you become confident in what you can do on the floor, and on the playing side, start if you have that confidence, then you start getting downhill a little more. You start seeing the situations where all the work that you've put in the gym start to come into play, especially with AAU. Kids that are playing AAU right now, um, you don't really have a role necessarily on the team. And one of the things I love about AAU, especially if you're in the right program, the whole point of AAU is to get kids to play, to showcase the skills that you have, what the things that you're good at, which is why, like, probably for most programs with AAU, especially ours, because we're statewide. We even have some out of state kids on our teams. Like, practices are very few and far between. Practices aren't necessarily the priority for AAU. Um, and I know that becomes a big concern with parents. Like, you got to practice more. You got to practice more. When are we going to practice? What we do offer is like skills, get in the gym, get better individually, on your skill set. And what's I think with AAU, what's really cool, if you allow it to happen, like, kids just learning how to play basketball. We don't have to practice once, twice a week, before tournaments. Would it be nice? Of course it would. Like, obviously it wouldn't hurt. Um, but it's just with AAU, when you have kids that are all from all around the state, um, I think it really helps players just learn how to play basketball. Quit worrying about running plays, like learn how to move, learn how to just read defenses. You don't have to have a ton of practices to start to learn how to do that. And so, with just in regards to AAU, like, there's gonna high school season, kids practice every day. You get stuck into a system. You're typically given a role, um, but that's not really the case with AAU. Go play some tournaments, showcase what you're good at. Um, and if you are playing AAU and you are putting the work in, like, you have to have the confidence to shoot the ball. You have to have the confidence to get downhill, to make plays happen. And that doesn't in regards to being aggressive, like, that doesn't on the offensive side, that doesn't mean shoot the ball every time you touch it. Um, this can definitely be a discussion, a topic for a different day. But again, AAU is, especially as kids get older, you start to understand, like, there's a lot of coaches, scouts that go to AAU tournaments to see players. Um, and so a lot of kids on the floor, they understand this. And so a lot of times it becomes players trying to do too much, and they shoot it every time they touch it. And sometimes good, sometimes bad. If you've hit two or three in a row, me as a coach, I'm going to start drawing up, calling out plays to get you more shots. Um, if you hit one, let's see if you can hit two. If you hit a second one, though, heck, let's see if you can hit a third one. Um, but there's definitely a fine line between, I don't want to say being a ball hog, but that's kind of what it is, and having the confidence to shoot it. And I think when you have two, three, four kids on the floor and they all want to shoot it, there's just not enough basketballs to go around, and then that happens sometimes. Um, you hope the coach can handle that in the right way, uh, but I forgot where I was going with this. But anyway, there's a fine line between having the confidence to shoot the ball and just shooting the ball every time you touch it. At some point, kids need to understand there's a reason why they're always open. Shots aren't always going to go in, so you definitely have to find ways to impact a game, um, outside of scoring. And I think it's really hard for, this is kind of where I was going with what I was saying, for players that are point guards. Like, that's their job, is to bring the ball up the floor. It's hard for a lot of kids if you're on a team of players and they all want to shoot the ball. It's very hard for players to give the ball up if they know they're not going to get it back. And this is something that I think I just had this conversation with our players just last week or the week before. But it's very hard if you're on a team and there's just no ball movement. The ball gets stuck no matter who has it. You know they're going to shoot it or they're going to turn it over, and it's just a disaster. Um, as a player, especially if I feel like I'm a better shooter than a teammate. It's very hard to give the ball up if you know you're not going to get it back. And unfortunately, that happens quite often. And you hope the coach sees it and they can handle that the right way. But I do think on a good number of teams, that's one of the hardest ways for kids to play, especially with AAU, because you know coaches are watching. You know you're a good shooter. Um, but you also know if you give the ball up, like you're not going to get it back. So what starts to happen is kids just start taking bad shots. Oh, I finally have the ball. Well, if I pass it, I know I'm not going to touch it again, so I'm going to get my shots up. Um, and I see this happen with several teams, and it is something just within training that we try to help players with. And those are like those kids that just don't understand when to pass the ball, what a good shot is, what a bad shot is. And it's not always that the shot itself is are bad shots. The timing of when the shot takes place is typically what makes a lot of shots bad shots. So us as trainers and coaches and mentors, that's something that we try to help players with. Even me as a coach, like I have these conversations with my players during games. Like you have to shoot the ball when you're open. Okay, when you start taking bad shots, let's talk about it. Now, why was this a bad shot? Do you understand that you just dribbling up and firing it? Probably not the best shot. That same shot from that same spot out of a few passes, now it's a good shot. You got your teammates involved. Um, Now, that being said, again, if a player has hit a couple shots and they're just kind of in the flow, I have no problem with them dribbling up the court and firing a shot. Like I expect my players to have the confidence to do that. Now, if it's 2, 3 times in a row and you haven't hit one, we're going to have a conversation about your shot selection. And so, again, that's conversations that I have with my players. Like, you have to have the confidence to shoot the ball, but you also have to be ready for um, the conversation that we're going to have when they're bad shots. Kids are going to take bad shots, they're going to turn the ball over. And as a coach, I'm going to let you hear about it. That's just what we do. As a player, as a competitor, you have to soak all that in and not allow it to affect how you play. Um, so there's definitely a fine line between being a ball hog, having confidence, being a ball hog and having confidence. I think there's a fine line between that. And I think the really good players out there, the ones that are just efficient. Every team needs players that can score. Um, but I think even more, like teams really need players. Teams really need players that can make other players better. Nolik, um, the Joker for Denver, one of the best players in the NBA. If anybody's watching NBA playoffs right now, um, he's by no means the most athletic player on the floor, but he is almost always the best player on the floor on any given night. And he's getting his teammates involved and he's scoring. Um, so having someone like that who takes the right shots, he still gets his shots. A lot of the offense runs through him, which I think is pretty cool. But having someone that can get you 10 to 20 points, but is also getting 5 to 10 plus assists, getting rebounds, like those are the getting blocks, playing on both ends of the floor. Those are the players that you want. It's definitely not all about just scoring and shooting when you're open. The special players are the ones that can score when needed, are okay passing the ball. I always tell players, you'll hear parents, coaches, the crowd almost always more impressed with the extra pass, the nice pass, than the shot. Like, I think that's just something that you hear probably more often is when there's the extra pass, when there's just a nice pass. Doesn't happen all that often. But sometimes that's hard within AAU. Such a fast-paced game, getting shots up. Anyway, so that's kind of my discussion for the day. Hopefully that kind of answered the question. Really just my thoughts on it. Get in the gym more. Let's fix this not allowing kids to play defense at a young age. Just in regards to tying up the ball and like going for anyway, I already talked about it. Not going to get back into it. Can't steal the ball. Anyway, have a great week. Thanks for jumping on. Again, if you have any questions, drop them below. Let me know if you're watching the replay. Let me know you're watching the replay. Have a great week, and we will see you next week. Laters.